Hey there, welcome back. This is Casey, and I am going to do a somewhat brief iris analysis, and I'm going to also include a botanical matching. So that's sort of a little bit more of my focus for this video. So we're going to go through and look at some of the features in these eyes and see what these eyes are telling us in terms of recommended herbs, plants, berries, roots, trees, any kind of botanical that we can match to what we're seeing in the eyes. And just sort of as an aside, you don't need the eyes necessarily, although I do definitely prefer having them in order to match herbs to people. You can also go by symptoms and family history. So, but with the iridology, it can make it much more precise. All right, so overall, we are looking at just a brief background for this person. This is a female in her mid to late 40s. She is healthy, and just there was just a little bit of health intake, but overall healthy individual. And I can see right away, what would you say in terms of constitution? I would say, I mean, just based on the fibers alone, for the most part, where you can see that there aren't lacuna and other markings in the iris fibers are actually very tightly woven. So this person does come from a strong genetic heritage background. She does have strong genes from my perspective. And as well, there are a number of challenges, especially in the form of lacuna. So we can see a good number of lacuna, and we can see that some of those lacuna are showing darkness underneath the iris fibers. And we're also seeing nerve rings. And we're also seeing definitely a lot of signs of lymphatic congestion, and even in the form of some somewhat difficult to discern lymphatic tophi, because the lymphatic tophi that I'm seeing are sort of going right along with the nerve rings. But we do see a good amount of lymphatic congestion, and if you follow Dr. Morse's iridology, you know that all of the different shades of brown are indicating acute, subacute, chronic, degenerative lymphatic congestion. I also note when I see these brown colors that there is, generally speaking, going to be a challenge or an emphasis on the liver. Okay, so I think that I will begin. And another quick thing about this person's intake is that she does have close in her family line a history of colon cancer. So we're going to be looking closely at, if we haven't already noted, the significance here of the stomach and bowels. We can see a lot of congestion going on in the stomach, and it looks to me like you can see in the form of this sort of ropey, thick bowel wall that there is also a lot of lymphatic congestion in the bowel wall itself, and just within the whole entire digestive system, looks to me right away. Okay, so we'll start by noting, we'll start with the right eye. And one thing is that the pupillary margin, let's see if I can set this here. So we want to do that. Okay, so the pupillary margin does seem to be fairly even. I mean, it's a little bit dark in there, and there are some small radii solaris coming from the pupillary margin, but I'm not seeing it. So there could be some level of malabsorption, but I'm not seeing it on the level of like extreme inflammation in the form of gastritis in the stomach. And as well, the pupillary margins in both eyes are fairly even. So we don't see a lot of jaggedness, depending on how well I can draw that line, right? But they're fairly even and smooth. So that's not the main concern that I'm picking up on in the stomach and bowels area. Is we have this stomach halo, and you can just see it just as you would imagine you could see a halo. It's just sort of faint. I'm seeing it as the coloring, so it's like brownish, but not as dark brown as some of the other markings in the eye. And you can see it in both eyes. We have a stomach halo, and I would say this is a chronic stomach halo. And that would indicate that there is some focus and even possible weakness or congestion within the stomach. And you can see that there are a number of, as well as lymphatic congestion. A lot of lymphatic congestion in here, and that has been confirmed by this person. She has had other practitioners pick up on that, and I'm seeing that this congestion is sort of covering up a multitude of radii solaris. So we can see these faint rays of the sun radiating toxicity, just showing us that there is a lot going on in that stomach area. And some of them will point to specific areas, such as this one, and we will get to that when we get to that, but this is significant here for sure. And we're seeing that in both eyes. So just a lot of radii solaris, and some of them being significant, and they seem to be fairly even, and they are covered by lymphatic congestion. Okay, and then another interesting feature, as mentioned, is the sort of ropey, looks to me congested bowel wall. And let me see if I can get, and I will draw it as best as I can see it. And there are places like right in here where we're not sure, so there could be some spasticity and even some bowel pocketing, which again we're looking at, and this person is very healthy, but we are looking at ways of discerning whether or not how much precaution she should take in terms of taking care of her bowels. And I am seeing that the bowel wall in this area expands into there, so there could be some diverticuli, there could be some spasticity, and let me just, and it's interesting also because we have this very significant marking. This is in the lung area where the bowel wall seems to be pushed in the space of, so there's something going on within the lung, and this is the right eye, the left eye, and that is related somehow to the health of the colon. And then we have this flash marking here, but I'm seeing the bowel wall here, and then again some sort of ropiness going on connected to the bowel wall there. And let me see, I feel like I can see faintly where this would be the bowel wall, which would indicate what? When we see it drop like that in the transverse colon, we're definitely looking at a good likelihood of some prolapsing in the transverse colon. Okay, and then in the left eye, just sort of draw it as we can see it. I feel like it is dropping a little bit in here, but I'm not able to pick up on it for certain, for 100%. So I'm going to leave that there because it is a little bit indiscernible. But for the most part, we can see that there is a chance of some prolapsing, possibly some weakness in terms, and we'll check on the parathyroid, just in terms of connective tissue stability. Okay, so already I would say, especially because the darker features in this iris are somewhat centered in the center of the eye, we are looking at an emphasis on healing with the stomach and bowels, the whole digestive system. And so I'm going to be making some notes on herbs because, like I said, I would like that to be the primary focus of this video. So I'm just going to write digestive. You know, I won't go into it in too much detail, at least at this point, but for the digestive system, the very best, most effective, and it's almost, in my mind, if you're really looking at cleaning the colon, you need to be considering taking powders. And so we'll talk about what powders I might recommend for this person. If you can't, you know, if it's something that's very difficult for you to mix powders and water or lemon juice and sort of chug them down, then I would consider doing some DIY capsuling. The reason I say DIY capsuling is because you just, I've seen, you know, capsule machines and how much powder they can fit in there, and it's just so little that you can fit a lot more powder into a capsule if you do it yourself. Otherwise, most people don't have too much of a problem or trouble taking the digestive colon cleansing powder. So I think I'll talk about that towards the end of the video. I will make up a powder for her. Okay, so we have the digestive system, we have, I would say liver because of the brown. There's a little bit of a liver marking in the right eye. You can see in this area right in here, it's pretty dark. It's right on the border of the hand and the arm, but I'm seeing this, especially the spot right in here, as the liver and the gallbladder. So I would say here, this whole section is liver, but the marking is in this iris is right in this area, and then above that, and this was where I wasn't certain if the bowel wall extended or not, but that would be the gallbladder. So it makes a lot of sense that that would be the gallbladder because it's sort of still in, well, it is still in the digestive system, but it does seem to be kind of merging, poking out, making itself known through that lacuna, and it's right above the liver. So we will note liver, gallbladder, and lymphatic congestion. And so I am getting right away, I'm just going to start making notes. I just want to show you kind of like how I look at eyes and how as I'm interpreting the eyes, I am also sort of channeling in the plants that may go along with what I'm seeing in the eyes. And it's not a difficult thing to do, especially when there are many plants that are just the signature plant, for example, for the liver would be milk thistle. And I am creating a formula for this one, and I will be adding milk thistle seed to it. She has requested that I do I have 2 available options for people when I do this. One is a tincture and one is a loose herb formula that you can make into teas or certainly infusions, cold or warm or hot infusions. And then even if you would like to, when you get loose herbs, you can also do a DIY tincture, especially if you, and I can do that also, I have that as a service, but if you just want to try it out yourself, you can do your own tincture, and especially if you want to use glycerin and 100% glycerin over alcohol. Okay, so right away I'm seeing milk thistle, and milk thistle for the liver will also, I would say milk thistle powder is one of my favorite things to put into the digestive powder, so that will be going in there as well. So a good amount of milk thistle for this one. And then in terms of the lymphatic congestion, there are many plants that are useful in lymphatic congestion for some reason, and I think it's because I know there's going to be a lot of reproductive stuff come up. I'm getting red clover, and red clover is a nutritive plant. It does help to clear lymphatic congestion, so it is a lymphatic, and as well it is especially suited to the reproductive system, and especially to the female reproductive system. So those are 2 plants so far, and I'm also getting dandelion. Okay, so dandelion, because of what we've seen with the liver, dandelion root is more suited to, it goes deeper into the body as a root to the liver, and then dandelion leaf is a little bit more suited to the kidneys. So let's go ahead and take a look and see if we notice kidney weakness in these eyes. And if you've been watching my videos, you know, or even if you're just, you know a thing or two about iridology, you know that at the 6 o'clock line, medial, so towards the nose, towards the medial, the midline of the body, we have the kidney on both sides. And the kidney in the right eye is definitely standing out to me, and I would say it's taking up this whole section right in here. And there is something of a transversal fiber, so that indicates a little bit of extra emphasis. See this fiber kind of going down and across a little bit. We have this dark area showing where you can see the iris fibers have separated quite a lot, so darkness in there. So kidney, and then the the adrenal gland would be right above the kidney, and it's just kind of covered in lymphatic congestion. And then just more like this whole area is somewhat dark in the kidney area. And then on the left side, it's interesting, we have not a lot. This may be the only psora spot that I'm seeing. It does stand out though in the eye. So we have this discoloration. It's that dark brown. It could be indicating liver weakness, but it's certainly, if not all the way in the left kidney, it's a part of it. So the left kidney, you can see the fibers. Not as much weakness in the left kidney showing up as in the right. I would say it's right in that area. Okay, so we do have kidneys, and so dandelion leaf, I'm gonna put, yeah, if I were doing, I have a tincture that has the whole dandelion plant, but I also have loose herbs that are dandelion root and dandelion leaf, so I will include both of those. If I was doing a tincture, I would just, you know, throw the whole tincture, that whole dandelion plant. It also has some flower in it. Okay, and let's go back to the right eye, just adjacent to the kidney. We have a little bit of space in between these two significant markings. So we have the pubis in here. But for the most part, the way I'm seeing this is two rather significant large lacuna in the right kidney, and then in the uterus and the vagina area. So female reproductive, and we're also seeing in the right eye, very close in this area would be the breast. This whole line can be seen as the breast line, but I'm seeing this right in here specifically as the breast. I've already just briefly looked at these eyes, and I know sort of what I'm looking for in terms of female reproductive, so that, and I have put them through my software, and that did come up as breast, so it's sort of significant. And just to note, this person is healthy, you know, healthy tests have come back, no irregularities in terms of cells, abnormalities, or anything like that. But, and I think this is fascinating, it's more of an emotional or spiritual emphasis for her, the female reproductive system. So I have seen that in other people's irises, you know, the female reproductive system being healthy, but there has been, well, I'll just say an emphasis in their lives on whether they're having children, whether they're not having children, and what their journey may be. And I've also seen that, so you see things show up in the body that the soul is working through. And of course you can't really, you know, prove that. I'm not really here to do that. I just want to sort of put that out there for contemplation. I have seen it also in the heart. So with regards to the heart health, I've seen it a few times in terms of, you know, healthy heart, healthy family history, nothing showing up out of the ordinary, but a significant loss or losses I've had a few clients with this marking, and I even had one client ask me if a broken heart could show up in the iris. and it was in her iris because she'd had all her tests done and she had a healthy heart and no family history and all that. So again, just something to contemplate, really, how our spiritual and emotional and our soul's journey may be reflected in the physical body, which is, you know, the iris is picking up signs. It's picking up the health of the different organs and systems through the nervous system. So it is a very physical diagnostic tool. So what it's showing you more so is that these things are showing up in the body, and then the iris is showing that, if that makes sense. So we have uterus, vagina, and in the right eye. So we're going to do, we have an emphasis on female reproductive system, and so I feel good about putting clover in this formula. Red clover, whenever I do teas or loose herb, you know, formulas, I like them to taste good. Otherwise, you know, I encourage someone to do a tincture if there's plants that should be included that aren't nice tasting. So red clover is really sweet. It's really nice. Milk thistle is neutral. I like the taste of it. And even dandelion, after it's been dried, is not all that bitter. Okay, so that is what we have so far. I think I was here on the uterus and vagina. I'm just going to fill this in a little bit. Okay, and then we see a little bit going on in the back. I'm seeing now that I want to highlight these nerve rings. And it's interesting because they do look like acute nerve rings, right? They're white, so that would be indicating acute. But there's also like little, it's almost like the lymphatic tophi are interwoven, and we're seeing just the lymphatic congestion near the nerve rings. And I did ask this person, we talked about different ways that nerve rings can show up in the human expression in terms of like that flinching, that easy to startle, and she did confirm, even though she doesn't have anxiety per se, that this these other signs of nervousness that show up in the iris, that did resonate with her. Okay, so for the nerve rings, for the whole entire nervous system, skullcap is kind of the first plant you would think of, especially skullcap. Its signature is the skull. And so especially if we have a lot going on up in the head and brain area, skullcap would be certainly in the formula. So I'm going to keep that in mind. But in fact, I'll make a note of it. Skullcap is just a premier #1 beautiful plant for the nervous system. It is a relaxing herb. So, you know, when you're considering putting it into a formula that someone's going to be taking throughout the day, if they are a nervous person, then for sure. But I also like to just use it as in a separate formula for stress. Okay, so I'm just going to keep that there as a note, but what I'm thinking for these nerve rings, what's coming through is Bacopa, also known as Brahmi. Okay, and so yeah, I'm going to add Bacopa to her formula. And we're just looking at the nerve rings. I do want to make sure that I add some more lymphatic herbs aside from the red clover. And we'll get to that. So I'm just going to travel up through this right eye and see if there's anything else that is of significance that I'm seeing. So we have in the bowel wall, in this area, this would be the thyroid, and I would say that is catching my eye. I think I need to get a different color here. So this would be the thyroid area, but it is inside the bowel wall. But if you travel out, you can see a little bit of congestion in that area. Thyroid, I did double check that with her, and that has also come up with other practitioners. So, you know, maybe something for the thyroid, but I'm not seeing it as anything of huge significance. What I am seeing, though, so I'm going to skip all the way around to this first area that I highlighted when I was outlining the bowel wall. And actually, you know, when you do readings with people, or if you're looking at your own eyes, something I've noticed is that when someone sees their eyes for the first time, a lot happens. You know, it's like meeting yourself on a level that you haven't up to that point. But people will show you, and when you're looking at your own eyes, you will know, you will just see things that you just don't, that just look off to you. And that can vary, you know. Some people are like, you know, what is that? Like, it's terrible, and nothing, of course, is terrible. But I think that when you see things and your eyes are drawn to them, that is probably an area of significance for you. And in this case, this is the lung. I see also that this is of great significance for this person. It's a huge lacuna in this area, some iris fibers, even a little bit of a transversal there, some darkness. And for this person, she's never smoked that I know of. She's just not a smoker. But she did say that her grandfather was an extreme, the best of the smokers. So, and I believe even developed lung cancer. And so that could be something that's coming through hereditarily. So for the lungs, again, the main plant, there's one plant that, there are many plants that are useful for the lungs, but mullein would be the one. And because mullein is a multi-use, multi-purpose, it's a beautiful nutritive plant. It also is used for the back. So we have seen some markings in the back. It's used to align the spine. It's useful as an endocrine tonic, and especially can address the thyroid. So I'm going to add mullein to her formula, and mullein is nice tasting. It's aesthetically pleasing in all ways, I think. The way that it sort of crumbles when it's dried and breaks down and blends into the other herbs. So for sure, mullein. And then we are seeing, it's not anything extreme, but we are seeing some radii solaris that are extending into the head and brain area. I would say this is somewhat significant. The medulla and mastoid, likely a bit of TMJ, and then this sort of dark area that could be a weakness in the bowel wall right in here, somewhat connected to that that medulla area, but it's interesting because it's close to where the ascending colon transitions into the transverse colon. So again, just more emphasis on the colon. And again, I will go over a powder that I have a pretty standard powder, but it will vary slightly depending on the person. Okay, and then what else are we seeing? I would say this area in here, because we're talking about the female reproductive, is that we do have the ovary in this area. And then in the left eye, the ovary is showing up, but much more clearly. A large lacuna for that left ovary. I would like to add also rose to this formula. Rose flowers. I like to add rose whenever it comes up. I'm happy to throw it in because it makes the formula taste nice. It's a feminine plant, and so for the female reproductive system, it's nice to have. It does work also on an emotional level with the heart. And as well, rose is something of a tonic for the adrenal glands. Okay, so no, not necessarily any pain. I was just thinking that with the back area. And if you're wondering why I haven't highlighted this, this is the groin here. So it is something that we're seeing in the iris, but nothing that I'm going to address specifically with herbs. Okay, we're certainly seeing a skin ring, and possibly even some level of anemia based on the darkness of the skin ring. So again, clover as a blood builder, and anything that we're using to address the liver will also address the skin. So we have the milk thistle. And then I will probably recommend to her to do some dry brushing and even a topical. I've made a few topical sprays that I'm trying out on myself that are mostly apple cider vinegar based, and they're nutritive. So I have, you know, nettle and dandelion, and I have, let's see, what else? Miner's lettuce. I have chickweed would be the main one in those that would be nutritive for the skin. That's going to help alkalize the blood. So if you can do a spray on the skin, that will go directly to the blood. And I am thinking about the blood. I think I'm just hearing burdock as well. So I'm going to put burdock root in this formula. And I like to keep the formulas that I make at approximately 12 plants, give or take a few. So far, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, only 7. Okay, so let's see what else we have. We'll look at the, oh yeah, okay. So the heart being in the left eye looks pretty good in this iris. It looks pretty good. There's a little bit, there's a lacuna, there's stuff going on inside the bell wall here, and then on the outside of the bell wall, this would be where the heart is. So you see that there's a little bit of a marking there. And there's not, to my knowledge, that I was able to discern any major heart weakness within the family. But just because there is a little bit of a marking here, and then extended out into this area, which would technically be the lungs, but it looks like it could be connected to the heart. And just because I'm getting this, I would like to also add hawthorn berry to this formula. And just note that yes, the heart does look healthy, but because of all the congestion and the larger lacunas in the lungs, and because hawthorn berry is a tonic for the entire system, it also is nice tasting. It has been shown to reverse heart disease. It's been very well researched. I've done a few videos on the heart and talked a lot about hawthorn berry, so I won't go into it here too much. And I might even put hawthorn leaf as well, because I do have that on hand. I have hawthorn leaf and flower and berry. And that might be a nice way to add the full spectrum of hawthorn into the formula. Okay, hold on 1 second. All right. What else are we seeing? So just this whole area, all of this is lung. Could be a bit of spleen. So again, working on the lymphatic system. And burdock as a blood purifier and alterative is also specific to the lymphatic system. So far for the lymphatics, I mean, I could say actually probably all of these herbs are, maybe with the exception of hawthorn and Bacopa and rose, but burdock, milk thistle, red clover, dandelion, and mullein also is specific to clearing lymphatic congestion. And so we know that when we're looking at lymphatic congestion, we're very much looking at the kidneys. We've seen the kidneys come up in both eyes. So we're focused also on the kidneys with the dandelion, and milk thistle does have some effect on the kidneys. As well as I mentioned with the rose, it as an adrenal gland tonic. Okay, so the heart looks pretty good, but I'm still going to add hawthorn berry. We have some neck and shoulder coming up here. Some more nerve rings. And you know, nothing super specific that is calling out to me in terms of brain centers. We do have a little bit in the temple, forehead, and mental ability. And then as well, I think I should mention that we do have, that I have already marked out the inherent mental brain zone in both eyes, and it is making its classic diagonal connection to the kidney and adrenal gland in both eyes. And then while we're here, I'm also seeing that we did note the medulla brain zone. So we had the mastoid and medulla showing up in the right eye specifically. And if you remember a few videos back, we spoke to the sexuality brain zone and how that is adjacent in the right eye only to the medulla. That may have some relevance for this person. And then I want to note also that when we're looking at the mental ability zone, we're also noting that it does cross through, and especially in this iris, we can see the radii solaris coming from the digestive center, and it does cross through the pineal gland into that mental ability brain zone. So in every formula, we'll make sure that we have at least one berry, and that makes me realize that I would like to add another berry to this formula. And for the emphasis on the kidneys, I'm going to add Juniper. And then that will also affect the glands. Okay, so what else are we seeing? This is just like the vocal cords, trachea, esophagus, scapula, a little bit of back. We're seeing very close to the kidney. We have the sore spot also in the bladder and the more so the vagina and uterus area. So again, more vagina and uterus, more female reproductive. And I think I'm going to just take 1 second here and come back with, I'm just going to contemplate a little bit further on these eyes and look at the herbs that I have so far, and then I'll come back and add what may need to be added to the formula. Okay, so I'll see you in just a second. Okay, so I've just given it a few minutes and try to see if what else, and I completely forgot when I was first thinking about this formula that there would be raspberry leaf. Okay, so raspberry leaf is a nutritive plant. It's a wonderful plant to add to tea formulas and infusion formulas because it tastes really nice. And like I said, it is a nutritive. You can take it in large quantities. So I am going to include raspberry leaf. Definitely running out of room here, and then as well I want to include nettle. And nettle, these are plants that, a lot of these plants I do use often, and nettle being a complete amino acid profile, aka protein. It is a good builder, it is an excellent purifier, and an all-around body tonic, especially suited to the kidneys and as well to the blood. So I think that's my first thoughts on this formula, what I do when I make up a formula is it's somewhat intuitive. So as I'll write down the plants, and then as I'm putting it together, I will just kind of see how it balances out, and until I have the plants like literally in hand, it can be adjusted a little bit, but I really like it so far. I'm not going to put the skull cap in the formula. I'm going to put Bacopa in instead, and maybe offer her a tincture or something like that. And just, you know, I guess just say skull cap as an option is good information. Skull cap is not a nice tasting plant. If I were doing a tincture for her, I might just go ahead and put it in. And then in terms of any kind of powder, I will tell you that I like to use the psyllium husk as well as the psyllium seed powder, and I use a little bit more of the husk powder than the seed powder. The husk is just the husk of the seed, so it's just a powder of after the husk has been removed from the seed, but they both have benefits, and they're excellent for the colon, for the whole digestive system as well. I'm going to include milk thistle powder. I'm going to include something green, perhaps dandelion leaf or plantain leaf. Plantain is specific for the digestive system. And I will also sometimes put moringa leaf in. I will also use chickweed leaf as well in digestive formulas. I sometimes will put activated charcoal in, but not always. I don't necessarily add clay. I don't think that, I think that can present some challenges on its own when you add clay to a formula as well. I don't necessarily add in Cascara sagrada. I will check with people before I do so. I know Dr. Morse's and most colon cleansing formulas do have Cascara sagrada, and we could talk about this another time. I really think that if someone's going to be doing colon cleansing and they want to be doing enemas or colonics, you don't want to be using Cascara sagrada because it can be a little bit aggressive, shall we say, and you don't want to add that into the formula unless someone is for sure constipated. All right, so what else would I add into? I think that's about it for the colon, but we can do I'll do another video on that at some point. So what I have so far for this person, we have strong constitution, challenges with or just an emphasis on the female reproductive system, an emphasis on the stomach and bowels with the family history of colon cancer, otherwise healthy genetics, definitely a focus on the lungs and on purifying the blood and lymph, working with the kidneys, looking at the skin as well, and then a little bit of emphasis with the nervous system. And so I think that's it for now, and if you have any questions, do feel free to contact me. And I do offer this as a service, so you can have your own personal formula created by myself. And I do like to have the eyes, but I don't need eyes to create a formula for someone. And if you're interested in an iris reading or any of my services, all of that is in the description box. And thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. Okay, bye.